Hello and welcome. Looking forward to seeing who's here online, jumping in to say hi and see if I might be able to get a few questions answered. If you're here, feel free to say hello. If you're watching this after the event, welcome also. Thanks for being here. And I hope that you are staying warm if it's wintry where you are. And if you're tuning in from the UK or Europe, thanks for saying hi. I know it's late in the day. Hey, Elizabeth, welcome. Let me know if you've got any questions. I'd love to know what your burning question is in 2021. What's going on in your dating? What's your biggest challenge? That's the way that I framed this live stream. What's your biggest challenge in dating? Hey, C-Rox, welcome. Yeah, say hi. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If you're just joining us now, welcome. I'm going to be live for a little bit here, taking a few questions. And I also wanted just to let you know that I am, for the first time in quite a while, actually since the back end of 2019, I'm opening up a few coaching slots for people that want to work with me for a few months. And let me actually just put this down here. If you're interested, you can go to jackbutler.com/apply. Oh, we've got a few more people. Welcome. Welcome to the UK, Seattle, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Welcome. Kimberly in Orange County, California. Emily, also in Orange County, California. Welcome. I think I'm not even saying California. I think we're saying that wrong. Welcome. Got London here as well. How do you get a guy to be more open and vulnerable during first dates? Wow. Sometimes people give me an easy question, just to warm me up. Okay. I mean, so genuinely, I'd be curious why that's important to you, right? So for most of us, I think vulnerability is about, sort of ongoing and appropriate disclosure, right? And ideally, it's mutual disclosure, over time, as in it's not just one person being really vulnerable, we're actually both getting to be vulnerable. Whether that's what we want to do on a first date, I'm not sure, And I'll tell you one of the reasons why I'm saying that. I know people who think that they had a really great first date because they kind of gave their entire life story. I don't generally see that those end up going into actual relationships. And sometimes we need to make sure that we're distinguishing sort of in the moment vulnerability from, let me share my story, which is vulnerable because I'm telling you some stuff about me that, is maybe difficult, or I'm sharing some trauma from the past, but it might not be fully appropriate to where our container is and where our relationship is because we've only just met. And it might not be as vulnerable as I think in some ways because it's actually, it's my story. So it's stuff that I've, perhaps shared before in many ways. So, I would not expect men to necessarily be vulnerable. I mean, some people are asking this question, right? They've been in a relationship for a while. How do you get the guy to be vulnerable? How do you do that on first dates? I would probably be focusing on you, right? Like, how can I go into a date and be as present and authentic as I can? That I think is going to be the maximum invitation to him. Just sort of noticing where you are landing with him, noticing if you're asking him questions, is he welcoming your questions? Does it bring him alive? Does it bring curiosity? Or is it a little too much for him? So just staying attuned, present, authentic, and attuned. PAA, that's probably the best bet that I would be starting with. And then also noticing if he's not opening up, what happens in you? Like, is that okay? Most people open up, sort of on their own timelines to some extent. So it might be good just to notice what's happening for you in that situation. And I'm more interested, once we've maybe had 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 dates. Okay, then what's happening? Then what's opening up? And I know that's difficult in this current climate. But I don't necessarily know that we need to go there too early. And just notice, is there a balance of listening and talking? Some of us have a sweet spot, right? We're either more comfortable talking or we're more comfortable listening. Some of us are so curious that we can actually be intimidating to other people. And this is this is a bit of a problem for me back in the day. I'm not just talking about in dates, but I'm thinking, for example, I used to go walking with some of my mates from university, some of my friends from university, and we were in a pub one day, and the landlady's there, and somehow I'm just asking the questions about, oh, how does it work? Like, do you employ people? And eventually, she was worried that I was either a policeman or an inspector from the Inland Revenue. So I had a bit of a default curiosity, which some people really love and appreciate, because they're like, wow, cool, you're listening. They can tell I'm really there and I am genuine. Some people, that's a little bit too much. And I used to have a bit of a problem with that, of like, oh, maybe you should be a bit more open or responsive. And actually, I think now in my best moments, I actually trust people to kind of know where they're at and what they need. So anyway, I'm not sure if that's a flavor that's relevant to you, but I just wanted to throw that out there from my experience. All right. Hey to Chicago. Hey again, someone far in London. Dealing with men who have been cheated on, who say they're ready when they're not. Yeah, I get why that would be difficult. So give me one layer more detail there. Is that they then say, they kind of pull back and say, actually, I'm not ready? Or is that you're noticing that they're not ready? Yeah, just to, I'm not trying to let anyone off the hook, so to speak, but I think it can be difficult for people to sometimes know, right, if they are out of a relationship or they've been hurt, betrayed, cheated on, sometimes to really know what they're available for, So I like that you've got your head on your shoulders and you're noticing. That's going to stand you in good stead. And I really want you to trust your intuition there. It's also a good reason why we take it slow, right? We kind of move slowly, baby steps, don't make too many narratives and assumptions about what's going on, because that probably will be revealed over the course of a shortish amount of time of getting together. And it might be why before you are, deepening or opening yourself, sexually or otherwise to someone, that you find out a bit about that. You kind of find out a bit about what's gone down in the past. I don't think we're going to change the fact that subset of men and women are out there. That's just part of the reality. And they also have my compassion. It might be that we're just dialing in, okay, how can we discern that? And how do we make good decisions for us that keep us self-honoring for where we're at? It's difficult to meet during COVID. Yeah, totally get that. Hopefully we're on the, we've got some light at the end of the tunnel. Clayton Olson coaching, Jackie boy. Good seeing you, partner. Love the blue background and the warm personality. Thank you, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. It's good to have you here. All right, I'm 57. It's really hard dating. Got it. So we've got a few people in a similar situation. Give me something to chew on with that. So what specifically are you finding difficult? Are you finding it difficult to make matches on dating apps? Are you finding it difficult to get onto a first date? Are you finding it difficult to escalate from a first date to second, third, fourth date? Give me a little bit more of the lay of the land of where those things are at for you. Is it possible to make anxious, attached, preoccupied, avoidant, etc. relationships work? How do you get out of the loop of attracting these insecure types? So part of that, perhaps obviously, is that we work on ourselves, right? So part of the working on ourselves is, and just to put this in a bigger frame, by the way, so we often talk about attachment, in intimate relationships, or we talk about it between, parent and child, and they're probably the most important attachments for us. There is also such a thing as, what's our attachment to life, if you put it in its biggest situation. So you can start to notice, whether you're in a relationship or not, how secure is my attachment to life? How okay do I feel about life? It's pretty hard right now for some of us with the direction that we perceive the world to be going. Can I know that life is for me? That even when it's tough or really tough, that there's some way that life has my back. The more that that's in place, the more likely I am to probably attract that sort of thing into my life. And then there's also noticing, right? If if you really don't want anxious attachment, there's kind of noticing, because that will probably show up in the fairly early stages of getting to know someone, right? And in the way that they communicate. There's a more sort of philosophical idea I'll throw out there, which can be a bit difficult, but for me has actually been kind of liberating. And it's something like, if we find dating relationships difficult, particularly if we find other people difficult, that just kind of realize that we're probably difficult in some way in ourselves, right? That there's a little bit of mirroring that sometimes happens in the universe. And I don't say that to be critical on ourselves, but just to get curious, okay, yeah, maybe I attract these certain type of people. What, if anything, would be mine in there, right? Is it that I sort of know that, but I don't trust myself, and so I keep saying yes? Is it that I have a judgment on a certain attachment style and I haven't necessarily discerned my own attachment style? Is it that actually in my avoidance, I tend to bring out the anxious in other people, right? Because there's very much a systemic dance that's happening in these attachment patterns. So at least when we do that, there's something empowering, right? Because we can bring it back over here. And it's not to say that everything happens over here, right? There's also stuff that happens over there with other people. But this is the piece that we can work on and control and get most curious about. Sometimes that's really hard to do. Is there a bit of a sociological reality that there might be more of certain attachment types in the dating pool? Yeah, that might be true. And we only need one. And actually, it's what we're trying to do is find secure attachment together, right? Even if we're both dominantly secure attached, there's going to be those times, right, when our secondary style gets triggered up. So, I might most of the time be secure, but right now I'm feeling kind of anxious. Can I elicit the support that I need from my partner? That's really the question, right? So that's going to be there anyway. I'm saying that because we don't get a complete sort of free pass when it comes to attachment, right? It might be a more gross problem. It might be a more subtle problem. It might be a secondary versus a primary kind of problem, but it's going to be there. So we need to learn how to befriend those parts of ourselves. We need to know how to advocate for them and ask for what they need. And we need to know how to do that for someone that we're, in potential relationship with. And that's not easy, because quite often the thing that they need is not even in your experience. You've not really had that experience, so you don't really know what it's like to feel completely claustrophobic and like you need your partner to really get away, right? Which is sometimes the avoidant experience. Or I just feel so insecure right now that I need you close, and I need you to come and cuddle me. I need you to hold my hand. I need you to tell me you love me. I need you to tell me it's okay. And so I'm a fan, where possible, to try and have those conversations early about what actually, our likely patterns are, what we actually need, and how up is the other person for trying to do that with us, and it's not, in my experience, not that easy sometimes. So, yeah, I think the more you dial it in, the more you might be able to notice early in relating with someone what their pattern is. And perhaps you'll have the courage, and it's okay to bring it in, just to say, hey, this attachment thing seems to be important to me. It seems to be an important edge in relationships right now. Could we talk about that? Do you know about it? Do you have any curiosity about it? If it's something that you've put enough of your own relationship education into, it might be best that you can find someone that at least has a curiosity about that and might be willing to learn. It's not easy to unconsciously shift attachment dynamics. It's much easier to do it consciously, and still then I think it can be really hard. So you can also use it as a little bit of a filter. I'm going to have the courage to name this, put it in the space, and see what comes back. And in the right configuration, something more positive might come back. Hey to Dallas, Texas. I know you guys have been suffering with the snow there. I hope you're doing okay. I may have dating burnout. Should I take a break, or how to find renewed motivation? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate with that. Curious what your intuition is. I think it's totally fine to take a break, right? And taking a break could look like, I've mostly been dating through apps, so I'm just going to put that down. But I'm going to be open to connections in real life. Right? I might be more willing to actually just say hello and smile at more people, in the coffee shop, in the supermarket, in our outdoor fitness class, wherever you might bump into people at the dog park. But I like the question because I think it is good to notice what is the energy that you're bringing to dating. And if it's a kind of tired, frustrated, or contracted energy, yeah, I would say change something, right? Because from that place, it might be a little harder to manifest what it is that you're looking for. How do you find renewed motivation? Maybe you talk to people who have been successful in their dating. Maybe you try an approach that you've never tried before, right? So sometimes if people have been really focused on dating apps, I might encourage them to broaden to interest-based apps, find communities that are interested in the kind of things that you're into. Maybe challenge your friends to set you up on a blind date. Kind of get creative about it. I think it's similar with so many areas of life, whether it's sales and marketing or fitness, whatever it is, just noticing the kind of consciousness that you're bringing to it. And if it's stale, change. And it's almost like the change itself is more important than the specific new thing that you might do. There can also be a pattern where we're really focused on making it happen, right? And actually life is saying, hey, this make it happen thing, I actually want to graduate you a little bit into let it happen. Not let it happen like I don't participate, but let it happen where I co-create with the universe, where I'm more surrendered, I'm more willing to listen, I'm more willing to notice which doors are opening, which doors are closing. So it could also be that the universe is going to give you some frustration if the old way that you've done things isn't going to serve you going forward. And that it might actually be about you getting really in touch with your own receiving, right? Receiving, whether it's just receiving, oxygen and breath, whether it's receiving any kind of gratitude you have in your life, just noticing, because that's probably the energy that you want to bring into relating with a guy, that you want to actually be able to receive. So that's something you can practice, whether there's any dates in front of you or not, right? Just to notice what my orientation to life, how much do I let things come to me versus how much am I always trying hard to make them happen? And, sometimes we've actually got to, we're still going to paddle, right? We're not just going to let the current take us completely and bash us against the rocks, but we're certainly not going to be paddling upstream. And so it can be sort of noticing that. And then you're allowing dating to be this much more spiritual journey in a way, right? Much more inner work practice of, let me notice, am I okay holding on to a desire even whilst the universe isn't rewarding me right now? And trusting that, maybe something can unfold in right timing, right? And I heard so many stories of people who've put a ton of effort in, and then it's at that moment where they're like, you know what? I'm going to just chill out on this. Then something happens for them. Not always, but it's something to bear in mind, that sometimes when you've put the work in, you can almost then step back a little bit and see what's coming to you. All right, appreciate that question. At 60, finding someone that you find the slightest bit attractive, a lot of men let themselves go. Yeah, I've heard that. It might be that's a filter, right? So you're automatically kind of in a narrower pool. I generally encourage us to not get too stuck on the meta trends, right? So sometimes I say, let other people be the sociologists, right? And work out, actually, 33% of men, carry, 20% more body weight than they ideally would if they had their BMI sorted, when they're over the age of 60. Just really focus. It's like you only need one person, right? And so there are, I might have a slightly distorted view on this kind of living in Colorado, but I'm sometimes amazed at men over 60 who can kick my butt when it comes to running up a mountain. Right. So you only need one. And if it's that, you've been fishing in places where that's not really the culture, it might be that you need to expand your search into places where health and fitness is part of the culture. Whether it's literally in a different city, or whether that's just, I'm going to go be part of that health club where there's lots of guys who are older and who, take their health and self-care seriously. So we don't want the broad trends sometimes to stop us, because I think it's so much in life, the broad trends would be a no, when actually, if we just keep focusing on the thing that we want, it's only one that can change it for us. So I would be curious which places you're going. If I said to you, you have to meet some of the most attractive fit men over 60, that's your challenge. Where would you go? And how would you figure that out? That would be my question back. Queen Introvert, sounds like insecure attachments don't always have to sabotage relationships. Yeah, absolutely. Depending on how we relate to that aspects of ourselves and our partners. Yeah, totally. I think so much of it is about a willingness, and can we do that work together? So it could be that we're both willing, but actually we've really tried and we can't seem to find that more secure attachment together. That might be really difficult, and you have to kind of just be with the difficulty of that, and actually maybe it's not going to go somewhere. If there's not the willingness at all, that's the one that's that's probably just a non-starter. So yeah, a little bit of willingness, a little bit of noticing. Can we make some progress? Can we get the right kind of support? I think that can go a long way. I won't use apps anymore. Plan to get out more after COVID. Meeting men only seeking casual, but advertise they're looking for long-term. A lot have even been married. Got it. Okay, so a little bit of like bait and switch from men who are actually misrepresenting what they're available for. Yeah, so I'm curious if there's a pattern that you notice with that allows you to discern it more quickly. Is there a way that men show up for a date, or that they language? Are you willing to ask some gentle but straight questions on a first date, or even when you're texting back and forth with someone, or you jump on a quick call with them and you ask some qualifying questions? In some ways, it's good to have that attitude. Like, I don't want to waste my time here, and I don't want to waste your time here, but to sort of hold it in a integrated, heart-centered way, right? So it's not just, don't waste my effing time. It's like, yeah, I'm not looking to waste my time. I'm good about that. I'm happy to engage in the kind of qualifying questions and conversations that let me know what you might actually be available for. So, okay, is the risk that you jump on a few calls that go nowhere? Yeah, but actually in the whole scheme of things, that sort of qualifying people out, that might just be time that's all invested in the overall right direction. How would you help a man step away from the go-to emotion of anger, the tip of the iceberg of anger, into stepping into the other underlying emotions, experiences? Well, I'd be curious, does he want to do that? I think that's the first question. Because we're not trying to emotionally manipulate people. We're obviously trying to respect each other's sort of autonomy and maturity. It might be that that's really a conversation for him and his coach or therapist, and that's much easier to do it in that space than to do it in the relationship space. And yeah, I'm curious again, basically, and hey, I've been at risk of this, right? From being in the coaching space. We don't want to be in the game of trying to be the coach or therapist to our partners. So I'd be curious if he would have the same diagnosis here. If he would say, Jack, I'm just angry, but I know that the anger is a cover up for my own experience of inadequacy or shame. Like, is he in that line of analysis? And also, I'd be curious about you. So when he's angry and you have the sense, actually, he's covering up a deeper experience, what happens in you there? Are you able to be with that? It might be that he hasn't got access to that right now. Is that some kind of deal breaker for you? Are you able to stay connected and centered in your, own presence? We really don't want to be fixing men. And we really don't want to constellate a relationship around a sort of coach-coachee or healer-healee dynamic. So I would be inviting both of you into getting professional support, and that might help clarify if there's something there that would support him in his own development. I find that once men are established in themselves and their careers, they often tell me they don't see the point of commitment. I don't want to compete, but I'm settled and want a settled partner. Well, I don't see it that way. And I think there's plenty of men that don't see it that way. so there are different consciousnesses in some ways that we bring to relationships, right? So sometimes I talk about a more traditional conscious, a more sort of modern conscious, and a more postmodern consciousness. And these are probably more like, spectrums of a rainbow, so to speak, than absolutely discrete categories. But in the more postmodern frame, right, men want to be in relationship because they realize it's actually going to help them grow. It's going to help them be more conscious. And there are, relationship can become a path, right? Now, again, that's not every man out there, but there are more and more men that are in that category. And probably for a lot of you that tune into stuff like this, that kind of guy is perhaps going to be closer to what you're looking for. I think also, there's most men want connection, right? Even if they don't want it through the vehicle of commitment, they do want connection. They do want intimacy. And I think there's a sort of maturity that comes online with men where it's like, yeah, okay, I can get hits of that if I'm being casual, but actually there's a depth that I can't really reach in that. So if I want a certain depth of intimacy, generally that's going to come with a certain type of container. So, again, the sociological thing, I think it's, if you're meeting guys like that, maybe we need to put you into some different pools of men, right? Where do men who realize the value of a woman, an intimate relationship, to have them be a better man, right? A deeper man, a truer, more conscious man, a man who sometimes is going to get called on his BS, where does that kind of guy go? Where does he pray? Where does he meditate? Where does he eat? Where does he get support? Where does he shop? What kind of career does he tend to have? Because you also find people who are really established in a certain career, and then they realize that maybe they've gone as far as they can with that, and they actually want a different type of career, right? Where maybe they want something that's truer to their purpose or who they are. And so, yeah, they may have made great money doing something that they've realized, okay, yeah, that's sort of taking me as far as I can. What are those kind of careers that people go in? So I would get focused there. And I would also say, not just, not disavowing any of your experience, but the opposite can also be true, right? Some men aren't really interested in extending their circle of concern to another consistently when their career isn't established. Because they're sort of like, yeah, I'm still kind of figuring me out. I'm still figuring out how to put, money in the bank, a roof over my head, and so on. But that actually, once that is somewhat established, it's like, great, they can keep progressing there. But there's a bit of a law of diminishing returns. It maybe doesn't have quite the same thing as when they were really trying to get themselves established. So, I would also be open to that as well. Men who are like, cool, yeah, I'm pretty set up now. And I actually want more. I want my heart to be connected. I want to be emotionally, emotionally available and juicy, which is hard for a guy just to do on his own or through casual, in my experience. So I wish you well. I like that you're settled and that you want a settled partner, and may that be so in right timing. Too easy for people in apps to be leading another life. Yep, get that. Again, I think that's just about your kind of screening questions, following your intuition. Louisiana girl, 59, Kiwi man, 34, separated by COVID, missing is tough. Yeah. Yeah, I just feel that for you. Yeah, I know what it's like to have issues of even being able to be in the same country. It's rough. It's rough. I hope that I hope that you've done the hardest stretch. That's my hope and prayer. Should we start dating if we're still in love with a casual relationship? No experience of dating after a 22-year relationship ended, then seeing someone casually for 3 years, want to start dating. That's a good question. I'm curious what your intuition is about that. it could be that if you really want to maximize your chances of finding someone through dating, that you might want to downshift or even not be in contact with this casual relationship, right? This is one of the hardest things, actually, I think, particularly for women to do, is when you know that you love someone, but they're not available to be in the relationship with you, how do you handle that? And it can be really difficult because, as much as the rational mind might know, hey, yeah, this isn't going to go somewhere, your limbic system is all connected to them. You feel emotionally invested and you love them, so this is sometimes why love is not enough, right? It's difficult, but it's 3 years is a decent amount of time, by the way, for someone to know if they want to be in more with you, right? So we kind of have that as already revealed to us. Yes, when you start putting attention other places, sometimes that can be the pull factor, right? That actually gives you the courage to kind of say no to something. It can also create complexity as well, So if you want to be the maximum attraction magnet for what you want, you may want to clear your field. And I get why that might be difficult. After 22 years, you only, haven't been dating, and then you've got this thing that's it sounds like it's a good connection, even though it's casual. So I would say in an ideal world, probably you might find there's something for you in really making that declaration. You just need to be aware that the universe may have its own timing for you. So it might not be that, you let this go and then next week this new relationship walks through the door. But it might also be important for you, having been 22 years in relationship, and then you've had this casual thing, it may be like a little bit of time to be in your own space, might help you metabolize this, or maybe even both of these things, So I wouldn't be afraid of that, even whilst it might be a bit difficult. And happy to hear that you want to get out there and date, and wish you well with it. Been trying to discern, but men have even admitted to having to lie in order to keep me engaged. Let me... seeking casual, but this is the casual, but actually they say that they're looking for long term. Yeah, I don't have too much more to say about that. Just wishing you that continued discernment. It's hard for me not to focus only on one guy in the initial phase of dating if I really like him. The problem is that this is how I get attached too quick. Yeah, well, good awareness. I think that awareness is going to stand you in good stead. It's another reason why slowing it down can be helpful, right? Like if you notice I'm getting attached too quickly, you might have to slow down the cadence of the dating, right? Even if you really want to see him, you might want to push it out a few days, a week, whatever's appropriate to where the cadence is at, in order to just, keep giving yourself a reality check, and I wouldn't, if you can, I wouldn't feel disingenuous if you are dating other people, right? Because until he makes that clear declaration to you, right? I really want you to be my girlfriend. I really want to see if there's something here. I'm willing to be exclusive with you, things in that realm. Until he makes that declaration, then, it's a little bit, it's kind of fair game, and we don't actually know where he stands. So until that happens, even if it feels a bit awkward to you to be open to other men, it might actually serve you, and it might stop this pattern of you getting attached too quickly, and you don't have any guarantees with this guy. It might give you better chances of actually staying in your sobriety, because the difficulty, which you're probably aware of, is once you're attached, your sobriety is probably going to go way down. Right? So your ability to discern, actually, is this guy available? Does he want a relationship? Is it worth me investing? That discernment is probably going to be diminished. So we actually want to do everything we can to avoid premature attachment, right? Because generally premature attachment is going to lead you in a direction of pain, just to say it a little bluntly. So yeah, it can be really challenging, but this is your spiritual practice. And by the way, for most of the people I see this isn't the only place that this shows up, which is why I'm saying it might be spiritual practice. You might get overly attached or excited or over expectant about other things in your life that lead to disappointment, that lead to feeling misled, lured, surprised, shocked. Generally, I see that that's a sort of pattern there. So this is great to go to work on it because you get payback probably in all the domains of your life. So, bon courage, as they say in France. I don't even know what that means. Go at it. Good luck. Be courageous. Is there a particular dating site that by data numbers your students have found to be the most productive? I've looked into Hinge, but reading reviews, I've been turned off, avoiding Tinder, etc. Yeah, I don't know it by the data. That's not generally how I engage with this stuff. What I know from the people that I engage with, I would say Bumble is where I hear people feel like they've got the better quality. You may know this, Bumble actually just IPO'd. Bumble is led by a woman. It has a predominantly female team. They consider themselves a sort of more feminist, app, or certainly trying to look at the dating game from women's perspective and make it better for them. And part of that is this feature it's only actually the women that can reach out first. So you have 24 hours after a match, I think it is, that you can do that. So if you haven't tried that, I would consider it. I don't know if Clayton's still here. He was talking the other day to me about OkCupid and the abilities that you have, like the level of questions that they go into. I think, it can be hundreds. And so sometimes you might, and then it's going to give you a percentage where you can see how you match with someone, and, I'm a little curious about whether those questions are always going to be the right questions, but it seems like a pretty good starting point to me. So, I would check those two out if you haven't. And the other thing, and I don't say this to, get you disheartened, but most of the apps are owned by the same parent group. So, for better or for worse, that is the case. I would just be your own personal scientist. Notice where you're getting traction. Notice where you feel drawn. You're getting results. Notice where the conversations are better. And keep doing more of that. All right. Hey, Joe, welcome. Relationships benefit men even more than women. Yeah. Married men live longer than single guys. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know there's a lot of research on that. So, yeah, whether that is abundantly known to men, I'm not so sure. But yeah, I'm with you. Biggest dating challenge, the pandemic. I've noticed that some men are more moody, hostile. I'm not sure if it is because they're not handling the pandemic well. Interesting. I mean, that would make sense to me that people are going to be more moody, hostile if they're stressed. And I think there's a lot of stress, kind of both individually and also just in the collective. And I think a lot of men that I talk to, and it's not just men, but have had a lot of experience of feeling really cooped up. And I don't think, to the hunter in a guy, I don't think the cooped upness is great. So yeah. All righty. Let's see what we got. Now I have to remember where I was. Okay. All right. I might just have to pick up the pace here a little bit. The pandemic is the toughest challenge. Yes. Last time I chatted to someone I fancied, flirting men, calling them names. How can I out there after 16 years of putting people into friend-client boxes and being loyal to my then partner? I think what you're saying is that after 16 years of being in a relationship, you're now not. And so some of the people that you've met or interacted with previously in the friend-client category, you might now be interested in romantically. I hope I've understood that correctly. Yeah, I get that, right? It's a bit like if you've been in the friend zone for a long time. I would probably on what's authentic and vulnerable. Number one is you can let people know that you're single, because you might be surprised. You might be surprised what comes out of the woodwork. And two, you can let people know that you're dating, right? And three, you could even ask them, do you know anyone that might be interested? So you could ask it in an indirect way, right, where they could volunteer themselves. And then I think you can also test the water, right? Any time that we may put something that's more romantic, sexual, flirtatious into a dynamic, there's a little risk that it may land, it may not, but that's really how you get your echo back, I think. So two approaches that come to me. One is that you do that a little bit and just notice what happens in the dynamic. The other is, before you go there, you may just say, hey, I'm single and I'm dating, and it's actually crossed my mind whether you would ever want to go on a date. And you say it kind of directly and vulnerably. And I think that for most men, if they see you as a friend and you say, hey, I'm could be interested in you romantically, I think for most men that doesn't compromise the dynamic of being able to be a friend with you. I think often that's flattering. I think it's different if you're in love with them. That's something different. But I think if it's like, hey, I've known you a long time, I find you attractive, it's not uncommon, right, for people to, end up in relationships with people they've known for a long time as friends. So it might just be your own edge of actually revealing some of that stuff, seeing what you get back. But I wouldn't worry too much about having to manage their experience or feelings. I think they'll either be like, wow, that's cool, or no, but I'm flattered. Then both aren't bad, right? Elizabeth, you're welcome. I'm glad this has been a big help. Most men seem to want casual relationships. I mean, I certainly think there's a decent amount of men that do want casual. I also think that there's men that want casual when they're in certain frames of mind, right? That's actually one of the downsides, I think, of some of these dating apps, and the way that they, that they're kind of appealing to quick visual kind of animalistic attraction in some ways. I don't think in that space it encourages guys to have a long-term view of what they might be looking for. But often a guy who maybe thinks casual, who actually interacts with someone that he wants more than casual, right? That's sort of part of it as well. Obviously, if a guy is already clear, yeah, I'm looking for something serious, that's better, that's easier. And there are also guys that can act casual, and then they meet someone and they're like, wow, okay, actually I want more here. So again, I wouldn't get too worried about that, other than if you're spending time with casual guys and they don't want something more with you, right? Then that needs to be no, downshift and put my attention elsewhere. Yeah, I also think, I don't know if this analogy completely holds up, but, a lot of us prefer donuts to kale juice, right? Even though maybe kale juice is more what our body needs. And so sometimes I think if guys are being offered casual, right, or they're playing in pools where it is casual or it's a lot of, swiping, yeah, that may not be the may be loud and kind of arrest their system, even whilst at a deeper level, it might be there's something else that's actually going to serve them. And the amount of guys that do want something serious, I think it's enough, so I think we just want to focus and keep ruthlessly focusing on what it is that we want. And if I can learn how to lose minimum energy to a guy that's casual, doesn't want more than casual with me, and I'm able to move on, the minimum attention there, then it's not actually so much of a deal. The deal is when we start to get invested, or when we put time in, or when we start to get frustrated because we're like, is there any good men out there, right? And so now the kind of attention and energy we're bringing. So, I get that it can be difficult. And yeah, just know that more than casual is great, right? And to some of the previous comments, it's great for men as well. So sometimes it's almost like you might just have to be the steward of that, and in the right time, a guy can meet you there. Almost if you had an unbreakable belief that actually being in the right relationship is really great for a man, then okay, yeah, certain points, casual, fine, that's cool. But it's like it's almost like I've actually got access to something that for the right guy is going to be really great. And so that's what I want to stay focused on. It's almost like YouTube. Sometimes I've been a bit frustrated with YouTube, that it's like, wow, there's so much kind of stuff that's going around here that seems kind of a low grade use of attention. Do I even want to play out there? And then I get reminded, it's like, okay, but there's plenty of people on here that want something real and meaningful, and they reflect that back to me, and I super appreciate it, and get focused on that, and don't get focused on the noise that sort of isn't that. So what I got, the yearning for a partner hurts. How to not break down but keep growing instead. Yeah, I feel that. I mean, it's good, I think, to be in touch with our longing. It's good to be in touch with our longing and not build out too much story around it. That's the bit that's hard, So sometimes the experience of it hurting is being amplified by our own narrative that, maybe I'm never going to find this, or love is unrequited. Maybe I'm defective in some way, so being really mindful of what commentary exists. Maybe there's stuff that you've got to feel, right? Maybe, at times we do have to be broken open by life, and we do have to say, this is so difficult. And, so I'm saying a breakdown isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're able to, kind of hold yourself within it. Sometimes life does break us down, right? That's part of the process. So, maybe you get support with that, right? Maybe you get a coach or therapist or someone that can kind of hold you in that and, witness you. Basically said otherwise, I don't necessarily think breaking down and growing are diametrically opposed. They may actually be near cousins in some instances. Ideally we're in the moment with it, I have plenty of experiences in the moment. I have no idea how I'm going to move through this. It feels intolerable. It feels overwhelming. And nearly always the sun rises, whether it's the next day or sometime, not too long in the future. So part of being with our authentic emotional experience is actually we've got to be with it, not amplify it through narrative, and let it pass. Like, let it be weather, right? Rather than climate. Let it be weather. Let it move through. And, that's practice. And in it can sometimes be really difficult. And if you find that you can't do that for yourself, I would get support. And then the other part of this is, maybe there's some edge of your development here around, your own contact with yourself. I don't know, but I'm just throwing this out there. Sometimes if the yearning for other is so strong, there can also be this, like, is there also like a yearning for me in there too that might be more unconscious? Like, am I really here with me? Do I really have my own back? Am I present to myself? Do I attune to myself? Do I notice what I need? Do I take care of myself? Of course, that can be amplified through a partner. But sometimes that yearning can be reflected back to us. And again, nothing critical or judgmental about that. Just like, actually, it's a deep calling to our own presence, to our own awakened heart. And, some of that awakening can really happen on our own. So yeah, it might almost be, wow, I noticed my longing for connection and contact. I imagine that with someone else, and maybe in this moment I can just really see if there's something more here for me, And you might say, look, I've done that ad infinitum, so it might not be that. Sometimes when I've coached with people who think they've done an ad infinitum, then there's still like a layer where they're maybe not able just to really slow down and be with themselves, right? They're on their own, but they're not actually with themselves. They're kind of two different things. And I know that in my own life. Sometimes I'm like, wow, I spent all this time on my own. I've been out to lunch. I've been completely up in my head, futurizing, anticipating, strategizing, worrying, all these good things. I haven't actually been here, and maybe Jack actually needs some attention. Can I give that to myself? And we need each other, right? So I'm not an advocate for everything that in the world is always available here and never available there. I think we are better together, and we're deeply social beings. But in our own transformation, that yearning can sometimes be an opening. So holding it as such, gently can be useful. Yeah, tread gently with yourself. How do I stay feminine when living alone and working in a high pressure job during the pandemic? I try to online date, but I feel so far in my masculine. Thank you for your amazing content. Thank you. Yeah, I hear you. This is a really common, difficult challenge, right? It's, basically work is masculine for me. And then, I'm kind of exhausted on the end of the day, and I've got to find this sort of feminine that is not the thing that's being rewarded. It's not the thing that's being seen by other people. It's not the thing that's got the job done. So I get it. Um, sometimes the yearning for more of your feminine becomes strong enough that it does start to impact the way that you do your work. So that's one thing to notice. Um, and you may not know how. You might be thinking, well, I know the climate, I know the guys at work, I know my boss. That just ain't happening. And it is also your life, right? So sometimes you say, okay, yeah, actually, this is important enough to me that I don't want to be in my masculine 50, 60 hours a week, really stressed out. That I'm actually, maybe I'm going to go part-time, or maybe I'm going to put a tighter rein on when the day ends, or, so just there's lots of creativity that you could bring there so that it's not so much of a stark contrast, because what you're talking about doing is actually, I think, pretty hard. It's almost like me saying, all day here I am, eating Doritos, but in the evening I'm trying to diet. It's like, that's really difficult. So just kind of putting that out there. Sometimes we want to take aim at also more manageable, and sometimes people can hold really big jobs and learn how to do it from their own feminine leadership, right? A higher order integration needed. So there's things you got to learn how to do that. You might find in the right context, you actually can be an agent for transformation of the people around you as well. So even though they don't want it now, it actually brings something into a company or a culture. So, don't lose sight of that this presence of the feminine in the workplace and in you in the workplace is a really important thing, I think, culturally and globally. And, so, taking a stand for that can be profound. So outside of your work, what are the things that help you cultivate being more in your feminine, right? What are the things that have you taking good care of yourself? You may have a list of those things. How can you be in your body, right? Can you move, dance, do yoga, sing? What has you be more connected to the moment, to your body, to your emotions? And sometimes those things have to show up on your calendar, as equal to commitments to work things that would show up on your calendar. What you're talking about doing is probably a real journey, so again, something that you might take aim at, that you've got to give yourself permission over a period of time to find a new way of being, right? That's the language that I would be using for this. And in my coaching, and by the way, if you weren't here when I mentioned this earlier, let me just mention this again. I have, for the first time since really the back end of 2019, in terms of a proper client opening, I have just 2 or 3 clients that I'm going to be enrolling in coaching. And if that's something that you've thought about, doing some one-to-one with me, I'd love to hear from you. jackbutler.com/apply. There is an investment to coaching. I don't coach that many people. And I'm open to doing it right now. And that's might be the only time this year. I don't coach in every season. But I'd love to hear from you if that's something that's of interest to you. So go check that out, fill the application in. It doesn't commit you to anything. And then from those that seem like they might be a good fit, I'll reach out and we'll get a call on the calendar to explore it. What are the things that have you in your feminine? It might just be, scents that you bring into the house or you put on yourself, or candles burning, or, you tell me, right? You probably know more about this than I do, and make sure those things are happening to some extent. Maybe it's that you need another feminine woman around at times to support that, even if it's over Zoom. Maybe we're going to have feminine hour and we're really going to lean into that. So I don't think there's a magic bullet to it so much as literally noticing everything in your life and where is it contributing to your feminine, noticing, is that balance something that is acceptable to me if this is something I really want to cultivate, and getting serious about the things that you want to practice. Generally by serious, I mean they show up on your calendar. So there's some kind of commitment to them. But I feel you. I think this is a big challenge of our time, as we are in some kind of process of feminization and integration, right? So gradually the workplace is becoming more feminine and integrated, and I think that's a great thing. It just might not be the company and culture that you find yourself in right now, but no, that is probably the direction of travel. And there are companies out there that really want that, so if your company doesn't, it might also be that you start looking around and see, what options you have. All right. Jack, should I lie to men and say I just want something casual to find more men to date? So I would say ordinarily no. I think it's good to be clear what you want. I do think there's a stance that can say, yeah, this is what I want, and I might have some openness in the meantime to, friendship or, deeper connections. So I think there's a way that you can language it, like if you're talking about a profile, for example, where you say, yeah, I'm kind of getting ready for the real thing, and in the meantime, I'm open. I think that's the way to say it, rather than I actually don't represent the thing that I really want. I think that might be less authentic to you. And you might then not. So the danger is if you don't have about you being serious about relationship on your profile, for the guys that are, and they're actually pausing for that, they're filtering for that, you might miss out, right? Because they're like, oh, it's just someone that wants something casual. So I definitely think you need that in there, even if you include the scope of what you might be open to, if that's true for you, right? Because for some people it is true. Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking for, the 4-course meal. And if we have a cool appetizer right now, I'm totally down. That's actually true for me. For some people, that isn't really true, or it might be a little bit of an adjustment for that to be true. So, yeah, honor what's true for you. How do I handle a man I've known for a while, 8 months, just through text and phone? And by a third date, he asked me to help him open up a business with him and his partner. And his partner, is that a business partner? Kind of weird yet flattering. So, keep it simple. My orientation would be we're not going to get into business with anyone that we have a romantic interest in. Other than if we have clarified, yes, we are, boyfriend, girlfriend, or couple, and on the back of that, we now want to go into business together, have at it. But this sort of romantic sort of business relationship, I've actually coached a few people in this territory. I think it's a non-starter in my experience. Unless you get really clear, oh, actually, I'm not romantically interested in this guy. And, oh yeah, okay, this business thing is real for me. But we don't want any, conscious or unconscious trajectory to escalation, by which I mean that I'm using getting into business as like maybe one day we'll open a door to something romantic. I would really not be keen on that. So I would be having a pretty straight conversation. Are you romantically interested in me? Because I am in you, if that's what's true. And that needs to be the priority in this relationship for me. And if that's not available, actually, I'm not available for these other things. Maybe in some other cycle, if I really let this thing romantically go. But again, I probably wouldn't advise you to go there. So to me, this isn't a guy that's serious about wanting to be in a relationship with you, because I don't think when that happens, a guy starts talking about wanting to be in business with you. I think he starts talking about, can we go on another date, or can I kiss you or something like that. Thanks for this live. You're welcome. It's been great to be here with you. Lisa, yeah, Bumble and eHarmony, right on. And Match and OkCupid, got it. Yes, I totally take on the therapist role in my life, even with myself. Why could this be? I'm on the analysis paralysis train. Yeah. Sometimes it's because it's our safe space, right? That we're kind of good at that. So we rely on it. We're good at noticing what's up for someone or what's wrong or how we can help. And it's actually a little bit of an outdated strategy when it comes to being truly present with yourself and someone else. Specifically, he wanted me to help with grants and securing seed money to finance. I mentioned I don't generally do business with someone I'm dating. He backed off and contacted me. Okay, great. All right. So we have our answer there. Yeah, that would be a red flag for me. Guys starting to talk about funding into his business. You're so unusual. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I think your videos are awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. I might not be able to get to everything here because I'm gonna need to wrap up on the half hour. My partner's father has terminal cancer. Oh dear. I'm sorry to hear that. That's my biggest challenge. It feels like a little like our relationship has to be on hold, our plans and dreams. I'm just trying to be supportive, but it's hard. Yeah. Well, maybe there's maybe it's important that there's space for you to be able to share some of your experience, right? Even if that's just in, you know, 15 or 30 minutes every week or other week, that you actually just get to really share where you're at, even whilst, you know, this other thing has kind of got priority. And if that's not available, it might be that you want to get somewhere else that you can do that, you know, like professional support, so that you are actually supported as you're supporting him, as he's supporting, you know, his father, I guess. So, um, yeah, we talk about load bearing, right? How much the relationship can take, and it can be really tough when there's these external things that are just part of life that start to put a lot of pressure on the relationship, and you know what, um, how much space there is to actually just be in relationship versus supporting other stuff. So I'm just saying, make sure you take care of yourself, and if you know that actually, yeah, I'm starting to struggle and I kind of need a little bit more support, I wouldn't be wary of reaching out for that. Once I learned about a man's perspective, I realized how likable they are. I quit being stuck in my self-limiting beliefs. Thank you so much for all you do. That's pretty cool. I like hearing that. Hi, Jack. How do you relearn how to be in a healthy relationship after divorce? I've only had a casual relationship since my divorce. However, had wanted more. I felt despondent due to disappointments. Yeah. Well, again, that might be something that you actually get support with. You know, I'm thinking professional support. I've had a casual relationship. Yeah. You know, it might just be that there's a process, right? That there's some process of your own readiness that has its own timing, where actually it's going to be easier to step into a full relationship. Maybe that's not here yet. You know, maybe there's some things that you need to metabolize, grieve, and then, you know, in some ways, you're actually trying to move on, right? So you might want to leave what was in your previous relationship to some extent there, you know, take forward what you can, but it's actually about closing out a chapter and then being open to reopening a chapter. If you know there are things that, let's say, ways that you showed up that you actually know weren't healthy in your previous relationship, maybe that's something that you can go to work on, right? If you don't have those things, you don't know what they are, then, you know, it might be that you just got to let life, you know, guide you. You know, it's hard to be disappointed, right? I know that, you know, and it's also good to be disappointed. All right. What I mean by that is often the disappointments in life point us to what's next or what we're here to learn. You know, so often we actually learn more through pain. It's not just the, you know, expansion and the upward and the, you know, the brilliance and beauty of life. We often learn a lot through the pain of things. So I would trust where you are as best you can. Trust what you're open to, and sometimes getting into a relationship that maybe isn't one that's going to be a long time thing is actually part of your healing as well. You know, sometimes there are relationships where, yeah, it's a little bit about healing. So, you know, you can be open to that. That might not be just a casual thing, right? That might be a relationship that feels a bit more invested, even if it's not going to last, right? But there's two people that are sort of showing up for it. So, yeah, let me know if there's any follow-up questions to that. I'm texting with a guy. I wait for him to text me, but I feel I have to carry the conversation. How do I keep the conversation going without looking like I'm needy? Okay. All right. I'm going to talk fast here because I've got to start wrapping up. So I don't have a problem with you being needy in the sense that we're all needy, right? We might vary with our neediness, but part of life, I think, is acknowledging that. If you have to carry the conversation, I would stop doing that and then see what's there. And if there's not anything or enough coming at you, you kind of have your answer, right? Because texting is pretty low investment, right? It's not like we're on the phone. It's not like we're on a date. So this, by the way, goes for relationships outside of intimate relationship. You might find in some friendships, yeah, if I never reach out, I don't hear from them, it's a little bit one-sided. Now, some people you say, you know what, that's just not their strength. And I'm okay with it because when we get together, we have a right royal time. And so even though I have to kind of pin them down for the appointment, it's actually worth it. And sometimes you're like, you know what, it's not actually worth it. So curiosity back on yourself. Why are you carrying the conversation? You're carrying it because you, in this instance, if you weren't, it sounds like it wouldn't be a conversation, but let's have you put it down and let the thing find its natural place. And I and trust that there's a guy that's actually going to want to be in something of a more meaningful conversation with you. We did meet up a couple of times after our third date. I don't know what to make of it when he tells me he wants me to contact him more, yet like some others, noticing that cooped up men are moody, angry. Yeah, so have you checked that out with him? Playfully, perhaps? Because I'm curious. Sometimes I've seen a pattern where people are able to spot in other people that they're moody and angry, and maybe they never notice that that could be true in themselves, or the part of them that might be moody or angry is a little bit less online. So I have a curiosity there, and maybe you can check it out with him, in a fun way, like, all right, Mr. Moody's here right now, and see what happens. Because it would be easier to have shared reality about that, I think. And you also then have your choice, right? If this guy is just too moody in this season for you, that's okay. You get to claim it. But you might not be able to take ownership for shifting him out of it, right? I think you can only really show up yourself and see if there's anything. Is life bringing you a moody, angry guy to teach you anything? That would be my curiosity. And if not, I'd probably move on. What are your thoughts about the MGTOW, MGTOW movement, and men who have given up on dating altogether after several bad experiences? So I have to say I'm not close to that movement. You probably doesn't surprise you. So I can't speak with too much authority on what they're up to. From the perspective of where we're at culturally, right, in this sort of postmodernist age, it's not the only age, but it's one of the ages I think is online. It tends to lead to fragmentation. So we're seeing more things in the space, right? We're seeing, polyamory. We're seeing men go their own way. We're seeing solo poly. We're seeing, things I probably wouldn't even understand what they are, the acronyms, right? There's a huge variation that's going on in the space that just wasn't possible, I think, certainly for previous generations. And I'm not making any commentary about whether that's a good or bad thing. I'm saying it's a thing. In some ways, you could say at the collective level, we're experimenting, so let's see. All these experiments are happening. Some of them might bear fruit, It might be that for some guys, they're better off doing their own thing. I'm open to that. I'm open to whatever's true, basically. Is it possible that some men have had some bad experiences and have been hurt by that, and that actually that hurt needs to be metabolized, and on the other side of that, something else might be possible? That could be true. Is it true that there are ways that the system is organized that don't sometimes benefit either gender? That's probably true, right? It might still be that the vast weight of that is in favor of men, and there might be certain places where that's actually not true, right? So that's part of like the men's rights activist movement. Again, I'm no expert on that stuff. If I were a woman wanting to date men, I wouldn't be spending time trying to persuade guys in that community to get involved or to critique them, or I would probably be really focused on what it is that I want. I'm a fan of men supporting men, wherever that's a kind of healthy expression. All I will say is if my only exposure to that community is YouTube videos, and it's really minimum because it's not stuff I tune into, I would just say, yeah, I think there's more going on there than perhaps just the front end of what's communicated, right? I think there are healings that need to happen at large between men and women, and more than that. And I want to be part of that. I don't know how that happens sometimes, but I feel sad for, if a guy's had a bad enough experience in a relationship that he doesn't want to get back into one, that's a little heartbreaking in some ways, even if that's somehow his true path, So, probably the best I could do in this instance really is to give one of these guys a good listening to and actually understand his world, because I haven't done that, and I'd probably be open to doing that. All right. Not sure if you believe, but I see so many orbs flying around you. To me, the sign of a genuine caring person. I'm open to that. I know that there's people that can see things that I can't. I've been with enough, auric people. So yeah. Thanks for the reflection. I appreciate it. All right. You beat me, guys. I'm not going to get through all these. So let's do this again soon. So a couple of things that I close out here that I just want to advertise. I will actually be live again this slot next week, I'm actually going to be here with Clayton Olson, my teaching partner. So if you want to come and see us together, it's a pretty rare event. It should be here on my channel, 3 p.m. Mountain, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. UK. So similar slot than here today. And if you would like to consider to work with me one-to-one, I'm open to applications right now. I'm looking to enroll just probably 2 or 3 more people. I've already enrolled 2 people just this week into coaching. So check it out. I'd love to know if you're interested, and we'll get on a discovery call if I feel like it's a good fit. Thank you for all these questions. It's been great. I've missed being here. I'm happy that we were live together. I hope you have a truly nourishing and exciting, if that's available, start to your weekend. And I look forward to being with more of you soon. And feel free, if there's a question I didn't get to here and it's kind of burning for you, post it under another video and I'll try and get with it or bring it to next week's live. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks if you're watching this after the event. I'm Jack. I'll be with you soon.